Morning.
Morning.
Today is Friday, May 2nd, and we are starting our day with a vote on H230. And then we're going to hear from our colleague, Representative Durfee, on a bill he has sponsored, H486. And then after the floor, we're going to room 10 to talk about special education. And that's it for the day. So with that, does anyone need to do anything before we vote on 230? Great. Make a motion.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I would move that we find H230 favorable.
Wonderful, thank you. Representative Kimball has moved that we find H230 favorable. Any discussion? Yes, yes. No, we don't need a second.
Okay.
Any discussion on that? Great, seeing none, if the clerk could please call the roll.
Absolutely. Representative Brannigan? No. I'll vote yes. There's Representative Burkhart, Representative Feltes,
Yes.
Representative Higley,
No.
Representative Holcomb, absent. Representative Kimball,
Yes.
Representative Maslin.
Yep.
Representative Odie,
Yes.
Representative Wazazak,
Yes.
Representative Canfield, Representative Kornheiser.
Yes.
We have voted the bill favorable, 7-3-1.
Thank you. Does anyone want to report this?
I'll do it.
Great, thank you.
Okay. Haven't done very much, so.
Great, okay. Representative Maslin's reporting this. Can you get it promptly to the clerk so it can get referred at 9:30?
Sure.
Thank you. Okay.
Send me the word. Or should I just
Because I find myself on the floor all day.
We can figure it out.
figure it out?
Yes, I'll send you an email. Or Erin can send you an emaam. Are you gonna send Jim an email?
Yes.
Great, thank you, Erin. Okay, with that, can you go get David Durfee, please? He's just right there. I told him that we were running a bit late, but Erin was so lickety split that I was incorrect on the running late.
Senate Finance voted on the yield bill.
Yes, did I not? No, I didn't. The Senate Finance voted to concur with the yield bill last night.
Say again, I'm sorry.
Senate Finance voted up a yield bill
Okay.
last night,
And-
as we sent it to them.
Yes. Next one.
Yeah,
Yes.
so there are miracles put here in
Yeah.
the legislature. Yes, I don't think that's ever happened in the history of the yield bill. Mostly because usually there's a data change between when it leaves here and it gets there, but that didn't happen this year, so.
At least 4 members said, with great trepidation, I vote for this bill.
Okay.
Two different.
I mean, it's really, those were hard decisions and there was no real right answer there. Yeah. I think the lack of data updates in it likely means, I know that Julia was sort of regularly writing to the Agency of Education to see if they had updates and they didn't. But I think that likely means that there's going to be a big update and budget adjustment, and likely going to pull into the reserves or not. Maybe it'll be adjusted in the opposite direction, but usually we're able to make a lot of those adjustments before it leaves the Senate. So we'll see. I'm sure it'll be fine or not.
Where's it? Those are the options.
Yeah,
Survived.
maybe. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then rumor has it that Senate Education is voting out their version of 454 today, but that might not happen. And then Senate Finance is working on it next week. But a new foundation formula was introduced to Senate Education yesterday. From the
Up in
administration.
the amount to 14,000 something.
It was lower than what we sent over and higher than what they were working with and had very different assumptions than what they were working with. That were slightly close to the assumptions we're working with, but still have some, there's some pieces to figure out still, I think. I've not looked at it closely. We can get a little walkthrough of it if it I've been trying not to get too engaged with their details, knowing that their details will change before it gets back to us. But we can start tracking it more closely next week if folks want. Representative Durfee, would you like to join us?
What?
Fantastic.
Morning. How are you?
Sorry if I kept you waiting.
No, that was on me. I underestimated Aaron. I will never do it again.
Never do that, yeah.
Floor's yours.
Okay, well, Representative David Durfee, Chair of the House Agriculture Committee, here today to make a pitch for an idea that's in a bill that's on the wall, and I'm honestly not sure what number it is because I have not been thinking too much about it. It's in the
It
400.
is 486.
46, okay, good, thank you. So it's a short form bill that outlined 2 or 3 different things. I'm really only going to talk about one of them because I think you've already covered the others, or there's a movement towards doing something on the others. This is really about very simple, it's the filing due date for your homestead declaration. So as you know, when you file your income taxes in April, you're supposed to, at the same time, if you are a resident homeowner, you're supposed to file the homestead declaration by the 15th of April. And if you happen to miss that date, if you are filing your taxes later in the summer, if you've done the paperwork and filed whatever you need to do, but actually haven't finished filing your income taxes, there is an understanding that, okay, you're going to file that homestead declaration later as well. The deadline in statute right now to do that is October 15th. When you file your homestead declaration, you're also filing another document, the property tax credit. There's 2 separate forms that you have to fill out for the state. And a couple of years ago, maybe 3 years ago now, this committee did some work on that second document and push back the due date to the following March 15th. There were various reasons for doing that, and I think the tax department was on board with it. Maybe in fact came in and suggested it. I don't remember for sure. But in any case, now there's 2 different due dates for those 2 different documents. So if you happen to have filed the first one, but only the first one by October 15th, then you've got 6 more months to file the second one or amend the second one, which might be more likely. But if you happen to realize on the 16th of October that you didn't file it, it's too late. And what happens in some towns is that that's not such a problem, because in some towns, as you know, the homestead property rate is actually higher than the non-homestead rate. So the impact on the taxpayer there is not a problem. But in those towns where it's the other way around, the way that we maybe think is the way it ought to be, that you're paying less if you're a homestead filer, then you lose out on the benefit. And the way the statute's written, there is no remedy. So beyond some blanket way for the tax commissioner to go in and do whatever the tax commissioner wants to do, there's nothing in statute that gives taxpayers some relief there. And a conversation I had with the tax commissioner last fall after one of my constituents who was very upset came to me. The tax commissioner was understanding, said, we get these complaints regularly, but either we have to do it for everybody or we should do it for nobody. It wouldn't be fair to give one person or, one person's constituent some relief there. So the idea in my bill is essentially to move that October 15th date back either to March 15th or some other date that people can agree makes sense. And I think the critical date to be thinking about here after the 15th is the day that taxes are due. And that varies by community and varies by municipality. In some towns, there is only one tax bill, and you're not paying that tax bill until perhaps the first or second week of November. So you, in theory, of course, you've already taken care of this in April when you filed your taxes, but there are people who routinely, not necessarily the same people, but sometimes it is the same people, don't understand that they have to file the homestead declaration every year.
And we've taken a lot of testimony about people not knowing about that form, people who have people who have accountants in a different state, like whatever it is, but lots of people don't, or people who don't file their income taxes and don't know about it. Yes.
Yeah. I don't know how many people actually file their own income taxes with paper these days. The software, of course, is another question, and whether the software is always doing what it's supposed to do. That's very difficult I think, for the state to monitor, all the different software applications that are out there. But certainly people who moved into the state from out of state, who've used an accountant, used a CPA, or somebody, often turns out that the people who have a problem, that's the situation they're in. And so a remedy there is, well, they can talk to their tax preparer, and the tax preparer has to pay up. And I've had that conversation with people, and, beyond, after that, I don't know what happens, but anyway, so that's the problem. I think that this bill, or the piece of this bill, is attempting to solve.
Can I ask a couple questions? We've talked about this before, but I still keep trying to get clearer on it. So if this applies to only somebody who's purchasing a property and occupying as a primary residence. Is that true?
Not necessarily. It could be somebody, so occupying it as a primary residence, yes, but not necessarily somebody who's just purchased it. So it could be somebody who has lived here for many, many years. You still have to file the declaration every year. And if it doesn't get filed, then it doesn't matter how long you've lived there. I think it seems to be the case that people move in, maybe they do it the first year because it's okay, and then they don't realize they have to do it the second year. So there's that category of people.
Welcome back, David. Thank you. Moving it back to March 15th as the other. Or did you say?
Yeah, the one for HS 144, or HI 144, the income document is due on it's also due, on April 15th, but you can still file it as late as March 15th of the following year. There are some penalties if you do that, associated with late filing. And when it's filed after October 15th, and again, this is fairly recent change to statute, the municipalities don't get involved. The tax department handles sending out the new tax bill to the residents with a refund if they're due a refund. So I know that municipalities are, we don't want to put any more burden on them. And I think the tax department shares that concern. They don't want to put more burden on the folks at the local level. Right now, there is a burden because if I'm the angry taxpayer and I'm told, by the state, there's nothing we can do, and the state now has the money, so the town doesn't have the money. The taxpayer has, or owes the money, but the state can't do anything. We haven't given them the authority to do anything. And oftentimes, the taxpayer goes back to, somebody they can talk to or yell at in the local office.
So you'd like this to go back to the previous March 15th as well,
The future March 15th.
for the future March 15th?
Yeah, so delay it to March 15th. I don't know that it needs to be, for consistency, that would make some sense. I think that as long as that ultimate date is after the taxes are due, again, and that varies. And I understand that in many towns, your first tax bill comes out in July. And your first payment might be, much earlier than October 15th, but there are towns where the first payment isn't until after the 15th. So, yeah, we're all very good, I'm sure, about opening our tax bills as soon as they arrive, but not everyone is.
Oh, sorry. I said that.
In your conversations with the tax department, did they suggest a remedy? or making these two dates coincide?
They
or
didn't,
the
no,
timing?
they did not. My conversation with the tax department, sort of the outcome of that, I'd say, was they were open to having, a discussion about it, open to thinking about it. They didn't want to put any extra burden on the municipalities. I think that has been their,
Concern.
yeah, just in general, the way they have tried to think about this, and which I completely get. We don't want to do that. Somebody would have to generate so the state would either have to cut a check if you've already paid it and realize, though, that I shouldn't have, or if you've held on to it, then in any case there has to be another bill generated. Somebody would have to do that, and that could either be at the state or it could be locally.
Representative Swanson.
Yes, thank you. Your reason for point is something we've heard over the years repeatedly in one way or another from tax and also from town clerks and listers, that their objection has been that there are when these things come out in dribs and drabs, about one this month, you do it next month or something like that, that there's continuous rebuilding and paperwork back and forth that drives people nuts. And the date that we settled on the last time we did this in this committee was that we'd pick something that was far enough out. They should collect most people, and also that and then I remember the sentiment, and I don't remember how I voted on that particular issue, but there was a cutoff date. Enough already at a certain period of time. You and I spoke yesterday evening briefly, and I'm sympathetic to the idea of why couldn't we have the same provisions for extension of tax filings, the same state income tax, this thing, everything else. I'm certainly amenable to coming up with something that works for everybody, but we need to have tax in, I think. And probably Clerks Association, and see where we end up.
Wasn't there discussion a few years ago in regards to once you filed your HS 122, you didn't need to unless your status changed? And I don't know where that ever went or what the issues were.
Yeah, my understanding is that, in fact, the statute briefly was changed to do just that. And this might have been 12 or so years ago. And after a short number of years, maybe only a year or two, it was changed back again. And Deputy Commissioner Samaroff, I think, could answer that question as to why and clarify the timing. But I think that, yes, that did happen. Yeah. Because intuitively, I think that seems like the simplest solution. Yeah.
Anyone else? Thank you.
Great. Thank you for
I
listening.
appreciate that your alumni status and Ways and Means that you bring out these like really important details to work on. Genuinely, like it feels good that there's someone outside of the room paying attention. So
Happy to do it.
yes,
Thank you.
yeah. Okay, folks, we are going to the floor and then again, room 10 after the floor.